Welcome to the Nailed It Wall.
On this week's episode of the Nailed It Wall, we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary. I'm in awe that we've been doing this for the past year. We're going to talk about some of our favorite guests, some of our favorite stories, some of the feedback we got from our loyal Nailed It Wall listeners. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 44 of the Nailed It Wall. I'm Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And I'm Mrs. Schofield.
Well, partner, it's hard to believe this is our year anniversary. And I'm glad you're going to give the people what they want. You're going to sing happy birthday to the Nailed It Wall. Is that true?
This is news to me.
I'm going to take that as a polite pass. Well, as we start every episode, we talked about how we've nailed it this week. Now, how have you nailed it this week?
Well, I didn't really get to tell you the story. I forgot that I was wanting to, so this is perfect. Yesterday, so my daughter's getting her license next week on Monday, which I have to tell you, seems a little sooner than I'm feeling confident about. And she is a good driver, but she still has a lot of growing to do. Think about, as an adult, how many times we have near misses and things go like a little bit wonky for us when we're driving, whether it's our own fault or from somebody else, right?
I'm starting to be worried to be a passenger in your car.
No, okay, come on now. Don't make me list for the listeners some of the escapades that we've had. I mean, perfect example. Remember that time when we were driving home on the freeway from a boot camp training, and that car caught on fire right beside?
It was insane.
Yeah. So, that is the kind of stuff that's happened to us. And that wasn't our fault, but you have to react, right? So there's so much of driving is reaction, and it's not necessarily your own fault. But yesterday, we went to Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A parking lot it's insane. It is insane.
It is insane.
And we went for a pretty late lunch. She had already eaten, but I hadn't. So we ordered ahead because you taught me about the app, and I am vigilant about using it. Yeah, I don't even go through drive-through just like a normal person anymore. I always do. I actually do the curbside thing. So we go over, and it takes Ella 6 times to pull into this one parking spot, which I understand. I'm not an amazing parking person. However, I could have nailed this one, but whatever. It takes practice, and I get that. But the thing is it is a busy parking lot. There's a lot going on. So there's a lot of cars coming all these different directions. And because of curbside pickup, Grubhub, all those different things, there's a lot of foot traffic too, because Chick-fil-A people come out to the all these things, and they're trying to give very good customer service. So kudos to Chick-fil-A. Unfortunately, we almost accidentally killed one of your people yesterday, because what happened was we were trying to pull out from our spot, and when Ella typically reverses the car, there's enough momentum in the car naturally where you don't have to gas it. You just let the car go back. But because where we pulled in, there was just like a little bit, there must have been like a drainage thing or whatever. So she is kind of having to back up but put the gas on. She's not used to that. So when she went to pull back, she forgot that she was actually in reverse and went to hit drive and hit it pretty aggressively, and we flew back so fast. And then so here's my nailed it and failed it. I yelled really loud some not good stuff. I panicked, but then at the same time I immediately locked it up, because it was genuinely the closest that we've come to something bad. There were people everywhere, and I just was so grateful in that moment that she was okay and that the people around us were okay, and I knew that was not the time to freak out. So it was the loudest and definitely that I've yelled, but I was able to bring it back and just talk about help me understand what's going through your mind because you're about to get your life. I'm in full panic mode, but I kept it all together. And she said that was the best that I've done in a scenario. And it was one of the worst scenarios we've ever been in. It was terrifying. And when your daughter is driving, then we're going to be sitting here and we're going to be talking. And Ella is very careful. And so it's unsettling to know she's going to have her license and they just send you out. And she hit the gas instead of the brake. And that is terrifying to me.
The fact that there's videos from the back seat from our good friend Sidro of you reacting. Now the one thing that I've been impressed as you've gone through this has been a month's ordeal and something that's been weighing on you very heavy. You take great pride in being a great driver. You love to drive.
I love to drive.
You hate giving up the keys, and now all of a sudden you're having to hand over those keys to your baby girl.
True.
And now you got to find this balance. Now, do you have any gray hairs?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? It's pretty impressive that, like, just seeing this one video that Sydney had of you reacting was, I thought this was for sure, like, going to give you a head full of gray hairs.
That will never be on our nail. We won't be tweeting those videos.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
But, you also have to be very proud of your daughter and talk about a little bit about the driving instruction that she's been going on, because you had to also pass this torch as well.
Yeah, well, I realized I am not... the thing that's really interesting for me as a parent, and I don't know if this is how it is for you, but I can be so much more patient with other people's kids than with my own, because mine are... They're truly my responsibility. So, like, if I say, yes, I've taught you how to drive and I send you out, that's on me. But I don't know, for somebody else's kid... Maybe because there's another level that, it's really someone else's responsibility, so someone else will fill in the gaps, maybe? I don't know. But I'm so much more calm. But I just realized I get a little bit crazy with her, and it makes her feel very stressed out. And so we paid to have her go to a driving instructor thing. And, Mrs. Engler's daughter, Sid, goes as well, and they're both getting so much out. I still have not been able to say, yes, Ella, get onto the freeway. There's no, I'm not there. She doesn't even know, that place where you get off on Bell and it goes that curvy thing where she doesn't even know about those things. I don't think she's ever paid attention. She's never driven that. So there's all of those curvy things that she hasn't even done before. And I don't know that I'm ready to be doing that with her. I don't know. You just want to protect your kids. And so it's hard to put them in scenarios that, you just think about how you and I feel about Grand Avenue, how we talk about, like, it's so confusing. It's the worst. It's so confusing. How am I supposed to send my kid out and just know, like, one day she may be on Grand Avenue? She's going to have to figure that out. I'm an adult and I freak out. So it's just hard.
I almost quit my first teaching job because of Grand Avenue. Like, that's a story for another day.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I might not be here just because of Grand Avenue today.
I know, it's crazy. And so that I am super proud, and I love this driving instructor training thing she's doing. And this week is her last one. And then they give her certificate, and she just has to take that. She doesn't have to take another driving test at the DMV. She just goes and takes her picture. So it's fine. I mean, I think about, what kind of a driver were you when you were a teenager?
Very cautious, because I was always afraid that my insurance would go up, or was afraid, like, back then, like you like to say the word hoopty, like I like the word jalopy, I was like, if my car got hit, I didn't carry I just had, like, the minimum, like, like I didn't have collision, you know, so I was like a kid, so it's like someone hit my car, like I was done, like, I was like that car was over. It was lights out, so I was like, I was so cautious. I wouldn't speed because I didn't have money to pay for a speeding ticket, like I was just so cautious all the time. And again, you would say that I'm a very cautious driver to today.
You are a cautious driver, and also you grew up, I'm realizing, with different traffic surrounding you, because it wasn't as congested as here, right?
Totally.
And what are Maine drivers like? Are they pretty chill
Yeah, they're pretty chill. I mean, there's just a lot of back roads, a lot of country roads, beautiful scenery, driving up the coast. I mean, we have, you got to know your high beams. That's something in Arizona, like, kids would never know how to use their high beams, going over hills and on passing cars. I mean, there's one thing you get in those country roads where you have the dotted lines where people can kind of pass you, and that's a big big concern for me when my dad drives out here, and we kind of had to take the politely no longer allow him to drive with the kids because Arizona is a different world compared to driving in Maine. So it was very laid back.
Yeah, Long Beach, not so much laid back. California, and you've gone out for, trips to California.
I've had a scary time with my dad driving in California.
California is, well, and I think that Boston, I've heard, is pretty tough like that too. But California is baptism by fire, and people are angry, and everybody is, their place that they need to get to is more important than yours always. And so you have to learn to be such a defensive driver. And so Ella's still learning that, she's still learning that part of it. But I probably wasn't the most amazing driver. I mean, I was good. I mean, I won't lie. Like sometimes I would do a little bit of drag racing, but like looking back, I think I'm very fortunate, and I need to allow Ella the time to grow and develop things. Like we do things now because we've been in experiences where we know to do those things, but you have to have the experiences. It's just hard to let your kids just go out and do that. Like I don't want anything to happen to her, so I want to and I'm not that hovery, that about me as a mom. I'm not that parent. Like I don't try and protect her all the time from life, but a car and boys, those two things are very unsettling to me as a mom.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. Now, my last question, were you able to enjoy your lunch after all this?
I will tell you, my stomach never hurt so bad, and I'm trying to eat, and I'm shaking, and I'm trying to be cool, and just chat with her, and she's sweaty. It was not really, I will say, heartburn, but it was fine. I tried to play it cool.
All right, well, my nailed it my nailed it of the week, we're talking about by the time school opens, we're going to be at, month 5 of just kind of isolating, and a lot of families in Arizona have, decreased their bubble, and they're hunkering down again, and, they're trying to, mask up AZ. That's what we're trying to do. We want schools to open. That's our big thing. We want to be back to full days a week, have students in our classrooms, and bring that normalcy back. And you're in my bubble. You and your family's in my bubble, and we're trying to take back summer. And last week, you introduced me to one of your passions. We took the kids out.
Yes,
we did some kayaking to Lake Bartlett. I've never been there in Arizona, so if you're Arizonan, check out Lake Bartlett. And you just talked about how breathtaking it is and how beautiful it is. And I'm from Maine. I'm a city kid. I'm a city kid from Maine, which is a weird kind of thing because the state of Maine is covered in 90% trees. And I've never been kayaking, and I had the time of my life. Ryan and Sam were together in the same kayak, and you were with Mackenzie, and I had my own kayak, and I couldn't get the seat cover to kind of lock up there, so you have that back support. You and Mackenzie had the perfect back support. And as I was going out, you're like, you want to fix this. If you don't fix this, you're gonna be feeling it. And I'm like, I'll be fine.
Hold on, because you need to explain what you mean by a seat covering. Your seat literally laid flat. So whereas there should be a seat with a back and a bottom, yours had no back. So you were literally going to have to kayak sitting straight up, which doesn't sound bad, but how did it go?
My abs have never hurt so much. There was times where I was just laying down and paddling.
A lot of times.
Yes. And
a lot of times.
I would go through these stretches, and I'm not kidding you, the back support is so key when you go kayaking. And you were upset because you wanted me to enjoy the experience so much. And but it was just such a fun day for the kids, and they had so much fun, and it was just a fun day to be out on the lake, and it was 100+ in Arizona, but it felt so cool on the water.
It was so nice.
And it was just such a fun day to try to take back summer a little bit and kind of have that little normalcy, and a little road trip for our kids, and one of my favorite moments of them and the back singing "Lean on Me," which is a big video for us to kick off this school, our Sierra Verde being together and the SV challenge, and so for them like sing that song in the back, it was just a fun day, and you know, it's such a fun experience. And we're already like, the kids are like, Mackenzie woke up the other day, she's like, I want to go to the lake today. I was like, I want to get on the kayak, you know.
We had to try a different lake, better kayak.
And the kids were just so awesome. I mean, Ryan, you know, he's going into second grade. Mackenzie's going to fourth grade. They were both rowing, having the time of their life.
My gosh.
So it was a fun day. Now, it's hard to believe that last summer, one of our main goals was to get our podcast going, to get our podcast off the ground. It took years and years for us to try to figure out this whole podcasting game, which is a lot simpler than you think, you know. And the cool thing is now, like when I go to cookouts, places, people talk about podcasts. It's like, oh, I'm listening to this podcast. It's, you know, it's not like a book you've read or a TV show. It's like when I'm in the car, when I'm by myself, I listen to a podcast.
That's true.
And there's literally a podcast on anything about absolutely anything you could ever think about. There's a podcast about it. And we're passionate about introducing our students to podcasts. You actually had your students participate in the NPR Podcast Challenge this past year.
That's such a bummer to me, though. Like, that part's hard. Because remember those ones that the Moxies came up with?
What was their title again?
Oh, my gosh. They had so many good ones. It was like the evolution, why TikTok has become a thing, and, like, what's the background. And then there were so many good ones. And then COVID hit, and all of them were somewhere in the iPads in the school. I didn't even know where anything was.
And then you had some great titles, too. You're already forgetting some of them. And and some people, like, you did it with your STEM class, and it's just such a cool thing of, you know, what podcasts have become. And, like, your favorite class you talked about was the fact that first day you just had them listen to podcasts.
Yeah, they loved it.
And you're like, there's this YouTuber, and he has a podcast. And
that was what Zen told me about the YouTube. Well, and then the thing is the timing of that. Remember, it was literally days after Kobe's death. And so there was tons of podcasts on him specifically. What you think about podcasting is you forget that it's such a platform to communicate things so immediately, you know, whereas a video production or something like that, you know, that takes time and you're compiling stuff. But a podcast, you can sit down and you can reminisce or deliver a message right then, like in real time. And it's just so accessible because it was really, really very new. It was like just a day or two after that. So that's pretty interesting, the timing of that.
Yeah, and like Mr. Galletti was like, oh, so is there a lot of editing going into it? I'm like, nope, we do it live. We never stop. We just go with it. We get our intro, we get our outro, and we upload it. And, you know, we have that RSS feed just immediately. Mm-hmm. And I remember Bill Simmons, he's also known as the Podfather. My favorite podcast is his podcast. And he used to talk about, like, with news, like you would have to wait for like Thursday for the Sports Illustrated to come out, and like for that would be the big news story.
Yeah,
you know, that's like 5 days away. And now a podcast, it's like things can happen in an instant, and you just sit down, you talk about it. It's like us right now. It's like, it's such a fun thing. It's like, oh, we have an hour. Let's sit down. The kids are gonna be quiet. We're gonna record this pod. And then bada boom, bada bing.
Jinxed that right there.
I could have, you know. And the cool thing is, you know, you put it in the hands, and you know, this podcast has been downloaded on 6 continents. Ghana loves us. Ghana, reach out to us. We have a swag bag for you.
Yeah.
You know, reach out to us on Twitter. Find us on Twitter. We want to mail you a swag bag. Ghana is our second biggest country, you know, and downloading the Nailed It wall. You know, we take great pride in that. And when a new country comes up, you geek out.
I do.
You
I get so excited.
And you know, it's that medium is like, and it's just exploded the last couple of years.
Well, you want to have connection and to feel, that's a thing that's really mind blowing. And I see the same kind of reach with Twitter. But you realize how interconnected we really all are in the whole world. And, you know, I think that's what's so cool about podcasting is your message is able to be so much farther reaching, and like, you know, and there's something for everybody. So our podcast is not for everyone. It's for whoever, you know, it does, you know, that's the thing. It's like, it's for some people, and then there's other podcasts for other people. And I love that, you know, there's just so many platforms and so many topics, and, you know, I just think it's awesome. I love it.
Our podcast has grown so much, and we've gotten so much better. We use a MacBook Air to use GarageBand, and we have Yeti mics, so we're very fortunate for those.
We are.
And, they are great, sound, and something that we're always trying to perfect. And when the sound is off, like, we get a little bummed out, or, if I'm saying or we stutter, we're like, I picked up on this, or I mispronounced this word. But the thing I love the most is just sharing people's stories.
Yeah.
And, this is a podcast about the teacher life. We talk a lot about our kids. We talk a lot about our students. Mm-hmm. We talk about the struggles. We talk about the current state of education in Arizona. And the awesome thing is, you got a text message today from Myra. What was the text message that you got today?
Do you want me to paraphrase, or do you want me to actually read it? Okay. So basically, she had just finished painting a rock. By the way,
amazing rock.
Wait, did I tell you that she has a book deal? And it's all about, like, someone's asked her to put together a tutorial book for these rocks that she's been painting, and you've seen them, I'm sure, on Twitter.
I have one right outside my door.
Yeah, and
feet away from us.
Like, I'm just so proud of her, for her following her passion. Someone contacted her and saw value in that, and so shout out to you, Myra. We're super excited.
We need to have Myra on.
I know. I hope that book thing wasn't secret. My bad if it was. I don't think
don't ever tell Schofield a secret.
Oh my God. So so anyway, it's just such a cool thing. But anyway, she finished painting a rock, and then she said, I'm ready to, I hope I get to sit down and listen to the next episode of The Nailed It Wall. We're a day late, Myra, and we apologize. It's just, life gets busy, and it's summer.
Yeah, we're summering.
And so we're trying to stick with the once a week, because it's important to us. And we have tons of plans that we want to do for, the summer podcast, but we needed just an extra day. So yeah, it's cool.
And the stories, and how many people, like Mr. Galletti sent a text the other day. He's like, the Nailed It Wall's back is the best part of my day. And so many people reach out to you to share in their stories, like listening to it, and what it means to people. Yeah. Like, I think my favorite thing was like when Basil sent me a text, and I listened to Jolene's and Shears twice just for that positive story. And
that's so cool.
When Tony got into Basil's car and the podcast like was in there, or Liz sending us like a picture of her car listening to the podcast. Just that reach, and like we know cool. It's like, we talk very community, but it's like, when we talk about esports and have these people on, mm-hmm. and it's a broader reach. And I think in this year coming, we want to kind of reach out to other educators, around the country. But I also love that connected feel, and like, this Arizona DVSD kind of feel of like all these amazing people, within our bubble, and, you want to grow, but you just love what we do. Because as I go through and I look at all the episodes and look at the recaps, I'm like, we have this audio blog of everything that we've done in this past year. And we look back and think about how much we've gone through in this past year. You talk about COVID, your father passing, Finley's movie coming out.
Oh my gosh.
So much happened in this past year.
Yeah.
And it's just,
and it's
so
all recorded,
fun.
And it's all there. Well, another cool thing is it's given us such an opportunity to celebrate and highlight amazing educators that are just doing their thing that people might not have on their radar, like Shear and Copenhagen. But when we had Sir Jack and Rudis out and talking about the behind the scenes, of the drama program and the evolution of where it began and where it's come to, and Mr. Galletti and his stories about living in the Middle East, it was amazing. And even just last week with Bonham, I loved that because Bonham, she said it in her when we sat down with her, how important her team is. But when that pod dropped, she sent that to her team because she celebrated them. And then Mrs. Chesborough is sitting on a beach in Mexico. I'm so jealous. So she's listening to the pod now, and you just see that connectedness with all of these people. And these are people that we know. We already know they're amazing, but other people might not know their story. And you and I love to hear people's stories. We just love it.
And share those stories and that impact. And you work with these people a number of years, and just like, the play. I was like, I had no clue about the play.
Spaghetti dinners.
And Copenhagen, just having that time, we've done so many projects with her. Like, she's one of your good friends. But to hear where, like, her positive roots came from, truly was the best. And, having parents on, business partners is one of the coolest things. I think one of my favorite podcasts is our man Phil. We took him to Astro Camp 2 years ago. This year we didn't go to Astro Camp, which is a big thing we've talked about in the podcast, about the highs and lows of losing that. But having Phil Hoff on, and this guy he's a sponge. He loves podcasts, and when I left, he was just talking to you about, what was he talking to you about? He wanted to do this whole other podcast on.
It was really, really intense science concepts and forward thinkers that are in the scientific world, and just huge concepts that were I do teach science, but I teach 8th grade science. But he is talking about astrophysicists and huge things, but he's so incredibly bright because he's got such a thirst to learn all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And that positive attitude and the leadership and everything. And so we had him on to talk about the Astro Camp experience. Mm-hmm. We want to put the parents at ease. We have this podcast with someone that chaperoned last year, and he did that awesome video about pumping everyone up, about why to go to Astro Camp, what the kids get out of it. And we had so much fun. Well, we had so much fun on the field trip with him.
So much fun.
But then just to sit down and see him and just talk and pick his brain about what is his backstory, mm-hmm. and what it's like to send his kids through Sierra Verde, and so much of his positive energy rubbed off on us. And I was just laughing the whole time. I was just having so much fun. I saw him the next day at Dick's Sporting Goods. I'm like, oh, weren't you just on the Nailed It wall? He was so excited. He was geeking out, and his family was we loved listening to him.
Gosh, I love having this time to sit down and think about the year, because I forgot so many people that we had on. But just as you're talking, I'm thinking, we had the Grab 'em girls on, and how cool that whole conversation was, talking about Lori's journey through aviation and drones, and then Sophia and her place in that. And that was a really powerful one for us as well. And then plus you have Basil and Tunis on there, and that one was
the best.
Having all 4 of us back together.
A 2-part, we did a 2-part one, and my cheeks just hurt at the end of it, because we were just laughing and we were together with them all the time, and there were just so many stories about leadership and growth that I took away from that other administrators. And I get excited when Tony's like, oh, people at the district listen to this, and the fact that you just have no clue with a click of a button when you upload this where it's going to go.
Well, and hearing, it's cool for us to be able to see their journey in education, and we're both so proud of them and so happy for them, and they're doing amazing things, and
we miss them.
Yeah, we do. And so it was really a special gift to us to be able to sit down and hear. We learned so much about backstories too, not just about their journeys, about different people that were in different positions within the district and how things have shuffled, and kind of their early chemistry as well, and all of that. It's just been so cool. And then the other one that came to my mind as you're talking about Phil, who was just a huge highlight for me.
People love that podcast.
Love that.
People are
he's
I think
hilarious.
JT had no clue about Astro Camp, but he's like I loved his energy.
He was amazing. Don't forget, we need to go back to them. But the other one that was one of the hardest ones for us, because of what happened, was sitting down with Lincoln, Wyatt, and Mallory. And that was by far one of the most powerful, amazing, you and I were just, when they left, we just were blown away by the things that they shared and all of that. So when we lost their podcast, when something went wonky with the audio, oh my gosh. I mean, it just felt as if you found, I don't know, being a gold miner, and you think you had this nugget and then it's gone. It's just off. It was an amazing.
For our younger listeners,
yeah, okay.
Gold is very valuable.
Listen, so, that one was, but just remember talking about the Samsung thing and all the things that we went through with them, and hearing them sit down. They were years ahead of their 8th grade, ages. And so cool for us. It was just the coolest thing.
And having Bailey and Isabella come in on a Sunday and
Yes.
share like their story in terms of the announcements and how it's grown and how hard they've worked and giving the kids stories. So it's always hard to have that balance, and sometimes me and you miss that time. We're like, man, we've had guests on like 3 weeks in a row, like we've had no time to talk with us. And me and you do such a great job of like not talking over each other, and we just hit record and we just go. We don't have a script that we kind of go through, and that's what we tell with our guests. Like our guests are so nervous when they sit down, and I'm like, it's just like us talking. It's just like us talking, kind of sharing a story. One that also sticks out to me is like the one where you talked about, you had Sam and Ella on, and you talked about the celebration of life for your dad, and like that was such a, it's coming up on a year, and like we talked about, how hard those things are as a teacher. Like you found out on Sunday and you had to rally up sub plans to get through that week, and to have your kids on there.
Yeah, that one was. I had actually forgotten that for a long time. This weekend was Father's Day, which it was way harder than I thought it would be. I think what's interesting about just grief in general is it's super unpredictable, and that's any grief, any loss of anyone in any capacity. You think how you're processing things. You think what you're kind of what things will trigger you or whatever, and it's never the things that you think, and it doesn't look the way you think it will, and you might feel like, oh, I'm good, and then it just sidelines you. And so this Father's Day was a lot harder than I realized it was going to be. And so knowing that we have that history recorded there to kind of go back to listen to that again will be really, really nice for me. But hearing my kids process that was awesome. And we literally came right back from California, drove that distance, and then came and did the pod. So it was super, super fresh. So that was really cool. I mean, it was special. And Sam's been on, I don't even know,
a number of times. And you think about, we're like, oh, we forgot to tell that story, Sam, when you went to San Francisco with your grandfather. And, he talked about much of his summer early on in one of our first podcasts. And Sam's a regular on there. And going back to Phil again, like I remember I saw him at the SV teacher play. And I was walking out with my wife and my son. And he came up walking to me, looking at me like a ghost. Like, he's like, that's your son? I'm like, yeah. He's like, the one that was talking about ARC? And like, he's so eloquent. I'm like, no, he's in first grade. Like, that was Schofield's son. That was Sam on there. And
hilarious.
Like, and when Sam came on and really did that podcast about, ARC and all the things that kind of go into this video game and gamification and gaming in general, that was such a fun podcast.
That one was so fun. Well, I think the funny thing about that one, well, a lot of people have had this experience, though, I will say, where they've never done podcasting. They're nervous about it. They're kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm going to have whatever to say. And then as soon as they're done, they always say to us, like, that was amazing. That was so much fun. Like, when can we do it again? And Sam had the bug right away. And Jolynn, like several people. Bonham said that.
Think about Celia. Like, once you introduce the
Celia.
Oh
my gosh, yeah.
Tell us what Celia said.
Okay, I don't remember.
Or remember, she's like, no, I want my own podcast. I want my own podcast to come out every week.
I forgot that she did.
She was all in on that.
I will say, Celia is a force, and I think that she will have. I think she will have her own podcast one day for sure. That girl has some really amazing things to share with the world. So I really did love her passion. I'd forgotten she had said that. Like Celia says a lot of things, and they're all pretty awesome. But Sam was so excited, and I don't even know now how many times he's been on. If you think about the times that he was on with Ella, is it three times? I'm not sure.
I have to look back.
And then
I'll have our intern check the stats.
Yes, and then the other thing that was really, really cool for us is kind of before all the crazy hit with COVID was sitting down with the two different people from esports world that we were dabbling in, Zach and JD, and two vastly different perspectives because they're doing different things. But the cool thing about that was then when we were part of the esports conference from ASTI, here's JD sharing our podcast with other people, saying, this is a great resource, you should listen to this, this, and this. And that to me was kind of, I think, right back to why we started doing this in the first place, is we wanted to have something to share that would be a benefit to somebody. We're hoping there'll be something. And I think that, those were good episodes, and they did have a ton of stuff. But I think what we continue to show is they don't have to be experts on things, that we constantly talk about things that we're dabbling in, or just kind of trying out, testing out, or jumping into. And I think it's important for people to continue to see that side, that I'm not even sure if there's ever been anything that we already knew what we were doing before we jumped in. I feel like a lot of things we just are like, let's give this a try. And it's worked well for us. And I think that was a really nice testament to the point and the heart of our podcast, to see JD share it the way he did, which was really kind.
Yeah. And Zach was so awesome, giving that high school perspective of really understanding how things are calculated, and the coaching that really goes into all these esports things. And and I loved his story, how that little octane car sitting in his classroom led him to be a first year teacher. And for him to come in on a Sunday and spend some time with us, and really get to know us, you have these chemistry with people, a lot of these people, but a lot of times we don't know these people. We're like, we love your story, we want to share your story. Right. And that's what I love about our podcast, because we're talking about things I'm doing in the STEM classroom, what you're doing as an 8th grade science teacher, what we're doing with announcements, sharing the administrator's story, talking about COVID, talking about will school open, and so much of that is it is the teacher life. And that's what we wanted this podcast to be about us as parents, be about teachers. Now, when I speak about parents, I think Ryan's been on the podcast twice. Mackenzie's
officially,
yes. He's
been behind the scenes quite a few times.
He does attend a lot of the podcast recordings, but Mackenzie is yet to appear on the podcast, and the reason for that is she's a loose cannon. We can't just put a mic in front of her, and she just Sam, we can kind of rein it in and be like, all right, a lot of people listen to this. Mackenzie will get on the mic and she will just say whatever she wants,
which is of course why I want Mackenzie to be on the pod.
Yes, and I'm still trying to rein her in and be like, all right, people listen to this, you can't just say whatever you want. And but we want our kids to understand this medium and listen to this. Right. And anytime I walk the dog or go for a car ride or I'm running errands, I have a podcast in, and I learn so much from other people telling their stories. I love Malcolm Gladwell. I think he's the smartest man on the planet. Yeah. Anytime he speaks about something, I'm like, wow, there's just such a crazy perspective. And more of our students are getting so much more from podcasts.
Yeah, and I think that it is going to be, that's something that we should keep in mind as we go to an uncertain return to school, just using that platform, whether kids sharing their stories. I mean, think about the perspective that kids are going to have from this whole experience. My daughter is doing pet sitting for a family that we know.
She's doing a lot.
Yeah,
getting her license.
She does not mess around. Well, she's very excited because she'll be able to drive herself to these pet sitting gigs. So she's very, very pumped about that. So, but when
maybe she should do a podcast on pet sitting. You share stories about pet sitting.
Yeah, she's really good at tutoring, I will say. That's more of her gig. But when I talked to that family, and they were talking about it's been awful, and these were the things that were hard, and these were the things, and we keep seeing it on social media, this is their time of what they'll talk about when they're older and they're talking to their kids or their grandkids. This will be the stuff that they talk about. And I said, you should think about what you would tell them. What are you taking away from this? What were the hardest things? What were the best parts? And, we just had a really good conversation about that. But if we all have that chance to give kids a platform in a podcast, imagine people's vastly different experiences. One person to the next, COVID affected all of us very differently. And I bet there's some pretty crazy stories out there.
Oh, totally. I could not agree more about that. And, it's just, it's just growing. It's become easier and easier over the years, and that's something we look forward to. Like Paula would send us emails and be like, this person wants to start a podcast. Yeah. So I sent them your way to kind of show them how to get started. And it's crazy how easy this is. And I remember a year ago, we had to wait for 2 days to get our podcast approved on Apple Podcasts. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's approved.
That's the craziest feeling.
And just getting the podcast art up, which is still a bone of contention for you. And that's something that, I've shared this story on the podcast before. Like, we want to get to the point of creating our own artwork, creating our own pictures on there. Jess, your sister, did our podcast art.
Jess has done a lot for us behind the scenes.
Yes, and she's amazing. Finley's mom there, and Amelia. And she did our artwork, and Carla, my favorite story, Carla goes, she's like, what's up with the artwork? It doesn't even look like you. And then you're like, my sister did that. And then she's like, does she like you? And
for Carla to say that though, like Carla's so I don't know, it was so unexpected and hilarious. I agree. That was a good moment. And it confirmed for me what I knew all along, that it was a really, really bad picture. And you kept saying, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then I knew I was right. It's bad. So it doesn't matter because it's going to be fixed one day. And I feel confident about that.
I feel like on our 1 year anniversary, we need to update the pod art there. And so those have been fun things of just figuring out the podcast artwork, getting it onto Spotify, getting onto Apple Podcasts, getting onto Stitcher. I mean, you can go to your Alexa, to your Google Home, Apple TV, and on all those things, you can just say, play the latest episode of The Nailed It Wall, and it will do that. And I think that's the coolest thing, and the connection of people. And I don't know, it's been so much fun. And to take an hour of your week to reflect, I think more of us as educators and parents need to have that time to just talk and to put it out there. And we have this digital recording that I can go back to old episodes, and I can listen to the Phil episode right now, and it's just going to bring a smile to my face. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I forgot he told this story.
Oh, he's so animated. So what would you say for people that were going to do a podcast? What do you think the hardest parts have been for us, for you? What are the hard parts about doing a podcast, and what are the things that you think people have to persevere through that, people might say, forget it, I'm just not doing this? What do you think is the hardest part?
I think the hardest part is just, getting it out there. I'm like, all right, it's your day to tweet the pod out, I'll tweet it out here. And we don't put it on our personal Facebook page. We just kind of put it out on Twitter. And I think the cool thing is it's 45 downloads, almost every episode. And it's just so cool. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at how many, the thousands of downloads that we've had of this podcast over the past year. And so I think that thing kind of blows me away, or it's you're constantly feeling like you're trying to market it because you have a story to tell, and
right.
You want to inspire, and everything that we do via Twitter is to bring the best out of people, inspire them. And so that constant, it's a back and forth between me and you. It's all right, you tweet out the pod. You're oh, I got to get better at tweeting out the pod and getting that out there. I think the hard thing of so much of these streamers are them just talking by themselves. And, these kids nowadays are just so attuned to being by themselves and and there are some pretty awesome podcasts out there. But I think the best thing is just bringing people together, and me and you as a co-host, it's just fun. We connect, and we've always said, we're telling these funny stories, we're going back and forth, we're we should have a podcast, that's what we should have. And I think just having someone to do it with and look back, and so much of life has happened to us in the classroom and out of the classroom, mm-hmm. and to have that that digital footprint of this time in our lives is probably one of the coolest things.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the other thing, for people, it took us a long time to figure out GarageBand, and it took us a long time to figure out how to what is Transistor? It's a host site.
Hosting, yeah. It's like so where you get your RSS feed.
That's what it's called, like a host site.
Yeah, so it's like where you like host your podcast.
Yeah, and so I think
that was the biggest obstacle we were missing through this whole process.
And the hard thing is when you have more information than less. Sometimes it's hard to sift through and navigate how to go about doing that. And so for you and I mean, this is something we came back to and back to and back to, and it was really, really difficult. And I think that we found an article that had suggestions, right? And then that's when you looked up Transistor, and that's how we went with that. And it's just, I think that's one thing, is that if you decide you want to do it, you have to understand, like, there's some work that goes into it. Obviously, you and I would be thrilled if anyone reached out and wanted to. We would be happy to help navigate that. But if it's important to you, you have to really persevere through that and find what works for you, because Transistor wasn't the only site. There were other things, and not everybody uses GarageBand, and that's fine. And then we dabbled with Zoom when we were doing remote recording, but you could do that on a regular. Like, there's a lot of different platforms. So figuring out what your vibe is, figuring out what your platform is going to be, and all of that, but being tenacious about it and sticking with it, because it's a commitment. And that's the thing. The other thing that was really hard for us is, during this hiatus, this time where we weren't in school, and we kind of had a gap. And it's hard because you have people that listen to you, that come along on this journey. And so you don't want to feel that separation. You don't want them to lose interest, and also, like, it's important for us too. So those are difficult times to navigate, and you want to kind of try and be as consistent. I think we've done a remarkably good job with that. But those are trials. Like, those are some of the challenges with podcasts that weren't on our radar for sure, but now are.
And I think the cool thing as well is you kind of get into this, like when we started out, we're like, we'll be happy if our parents listen to this, and like those are our listeners, and we're still going to do this. And for the community, like business partners, people around the world that kind of embrace it and retweet it and leave a comment about our podcast, is just like, it's just so cool, because these are people that we haven't met, people sharing the podcast, and you want to be kind of like those leaders, like in terms of doing something that nobody else is doing, and getting people on and be like, I've never been on a podcast. Like, it's like, is this live? Bonham's like, are we live? Yeah. Like, is it recording us right now? And and we're like, it doesn't work that way. And we want to get our man Dennis Myers on, and he's from Hillcrest, and we're both pretty certain he doesn't know what a podcast is.
Oh my gosh, he will be hilarious. He will.
And like that's something that we had to, stick with, and like every week, like every Tuesday, like that, build that consistent fan base, and people loving it and sharing it. And, once someone's on, they share it with all their families, and it's just so much fun. And I can't say it enough. And, I think we could have done a better job over the years, like of reaching out to other podcasters, being like, how'd you do this? Like, what is the next step? And, I think Steve Jobs always talks about just ask, and that's something that we didn't do. Like, we tried to
know Twitter as well then.
Yeah. But, like even like we try to watch YouTube tutorials, and there's always seemed like some step missing along the way. And so I think, like Steve Jobs has this awesome story that he shared about there's a semiconductor plant. He's like 12 or 13, and he just took out the phone book and he called them up, and he's like, I want to work, I want to learn what you do, I want to work for you. And they're like, well, we're not hiring. He's like, I'll work for free. And he's like this 13-year-old kid, and he went there and he learned all about like circuits and like these semiconductors and how things are processed. And he's like, my greatest advice is to just ask, and I think that's something that, wow, we've gotten a lot better at. Yeah. And just like we want to figure out, like so much of what we've done is figure out on our own. Yeah. And I feel like now it's like with JD, he does a great job of just sharing things about streaming. Like, so I was like, now it's like, we're just going to ask. We're like, just know the right people and not be afraid to ask.
I think you're totally right. And I think that that is that's the beauty of, number one, Twitter for us, because there's been so many people that you've just like, just people you don't know. You just, we Twitter know them, right? And so you've been really good about that. And
I'm like, did you see it? I was like, I just asked. I'm like, how'd you do this?
I know. It's so good, but you realize that a lot of times you're absolutely right. Well, it kind of reminds me of when we were trying to actively get mentors for Moxie Girls, and all you have to do is ask. Like, there's so many people that are just willing to share resources, share time, that they want to connect.
Or even better mentors. They're like, oh, I know this person, like at Blue Origins.
Right. And so that kind of stuff, you're right, is so important. And in education, in any part of life, but definitely in education, I think the more connections that you can make, the more you do reach out and tap into those sources that are around us all the time. I think that's just makes us better at everything we do, like as educators, as people. And those connections for us have been hugely important. Every single person that we've sat down with on our podcast, like, we've walked away with just as much, probably a lot more than they did, and we just got so much from it because we collect stories and we want to know the whys of people's lives and, like, how what their journey is. And so I think that that's just such a good way to approach life in general.
And I also think about, someone once told me, like, everyone has a good book in them. Everyone has a story. And what we did was, so much is a story about us as teachers, us about the highs and lows, more highs. And, not saying John Krasinski ripped us off, but I feel like we were the original Some Good News, like, that's what we did. Like, we want to inspire young educators of, like, all the good that's in education and all the great stories and all the uplifting things that students are doing to work together. And, we were the original Some Good News. I am saying it on this podcast.
Hashtag truth.
I think he ripped our idea off. And so it's something that I was so proud about, of just how positive we were and how many awesome stories we shared and how excited we got about just being passionate educators.
Right. Well, and it's so true, though. It's so true. Just celebrating what is there already. And I really love, we haven't had a lot of experiences seeing podcasts where you give a platform to kids. And I know that was something from the beginning that was really important to us, because we didn't just want it to be us. We didn't want it to just be teachers. And so we branched out to admin. We've had parents, we've had kids, and so
business partners.
And so it's such a cool thing to be able to have so many different voices, so many different perspectives, excuse me, and viewpoints, because they all paint a different picture. They're all part of our story. They're all part of our journey. And so I'm excited about the people that are on our radar moving forward. You and I, we collect good people, and there's so many good people doing so many good things in the world all the time. And now, through what we learned through Zoom, is we're not confined just to our small area. We could extend it. The thing is we could spend every week easily filling it with just the people in our area. But there's so many stories to tell, and our possibilities are endless, and our pod is very much like a living, breathing thing, and it kind of takes its own direction. Sometimes we're just kind of along for the ride, and we're like, oh, I guess this makes sense for us to absorb, even if it wasn't on our map in the beginning,
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is like, it'd be one thing for us to sit down with these amazing people and talk, but it's like so many times where JD would be like, oh, there's a great podcast about how to get into esports, like what it looks like at the high school level, a great story here, and it's all there. It's all there, and you can look back and, just so many great stories, and the fact that people are getting so much from other people's stories, and a different perspective. And even as like school shut down with the COVID, to have Tony on to really talk about what are we looking for moving forward. And Tony did such a great job talking about the focus on the social emotional health of like you and your family and these trying times. And you think back to like that moment, that was the beginning of our spring break. I think we had him on that Sunday, and he talked about, at that moment we had no clue like where the economy was going to go and meals for these kids and how long this was going to last, and just kind of just blows you away of like what has happened in this last year. And we've documented it all like on the Nailed It wall.
That's so true. It is so true. And I love that Mr. Galletti is a huge fan of podcasts, and that's been awesome. And so, I love to see him using that platform, ours, and, what I think, I have a feeling he'll do his own at some point, because he's definitely podcast passionate, I would say. And man, that guy's got some stories.
Oh, he does.
He's got some stories.
And he's inspired me to live my life a little more. I'm like, to get out of my bubble, and the man ran a marathon at our school this year for our booster-thon. And, like when I run, I was like, I got to listen to some upbeat music. I got to have my like workout playlist. And he runs these ultra marathons, these long distance, and he'll listen to a podcast while he runs. And I can't get to that point, but maybe one day, I will get to that point. And but hearing these stories and being inspired by everybody, it's inspired me to live more of a full life, and to get out there and give more to my kids, give more to my students. And Twitter inspires me so much more. Podcast inspires me so much more. And when I look at it, partner, like I'm just so thankful for you for being so passionate about like what we're doing, and to really like push each other like in the classroom as parents and as a friend. So I wouldn't rather have any other co-host than you.
Thanks, pal. Same here. And we are so fortunate to have the opportunity. There's people that join us for this, and to be so supportive and positive about what we have to offer. And we're so lucky. We're so lucky. And I'm glad that we're not podcasting solo. It is a good fit. So, we're very, very lucky. We forget that. And so we're grateful to all the people that do this with us. We're grateful that you guys have the time that you dedicate to listen to us share whatever comes to our minds. And it's been just the most amazing experience. And that's year one. So we have plans, right? We have plans for our next year, and we'll see kind of where that takes us. And I just feel incredibly lucky.
Couldn't say it better there, and it's funny to think about, one of our first podcasts, we talked about the origins of the name, The Nailed It Wall, and how we're like, all right, it's going to be a 22-minute podcast every week. And I'm like, we can't get anything in 22 minutes. And, it's truly, you really have to enjoy us as hosts and the people that we have on in order to listen to take an hour out of your week to really hear the stories. And hopefully we've inspired you. Hopefully we've pushed you to be better parents, better teachers, a better friend. And, I love it. And I can't wait to see how this podcast grows.
I know, and just think, a year ago, we recorded sitting on the floor. Your dog was breathy in the microphone. Brady made his first appearance, and, this is not too far off, I will say. I'm not sitting on the floor. I'm sitting just above the floor, but, we've got Brady beside us, and it just seems like the right way to kind of celebrate and really be grateful for a year of growth and see kind of where it's taken us.
As we say always, people, if you can be anything, be kind. Now, if you loved hearing stories about our life as educators, our lives as parents, the reason why my daughters never appeared on the Nailed It Wall, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Every Tuesday, the latest episode of the Nailed It Wall will be downloaded to your phone. If you're like us and you're on Twitter, you want to see pictures, videos of our crazy lives, me laying down on a kayak, those are all on Twitter. You can follow me at Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And me at A Positive Proton.